let's move on to our next keynote, and that's building Europe's largest Gen AI cloud. The why, the what, and the how. My guest, a man, great experience, that is Karl Havard, Managing Director of Taiga Cloud. Karl, hi, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Yes, very well. We have fitted so much experience onto this stage this morning. It's quite extraordinary. There's some fantastic insights, and I'm sure I've been very much looking forward to this one. The floor is yours, sir.
Awesome. Thank you very much. So hopefully you can see my slides. I can see myself. Great. There you go. You can see them there. So 20 minutes to tell you what it takes to build Europe's largest generative AI cloud. Clearly, it takes a lot longer than that to build it. But what I'd like to do is just go through all the elements that we have considered about how to deploy generative AI, which is actually very demanding an amount of compute power required for today's data centers. So without further ado, I'll go on to the next slide. And it's interesting, the term cloud, isn't it? When people on the street, or let's call them non-IT folk, that when they think of cloud or cloud is mentioned, it's, we'll just save that in the cloud, and not really understanding what's really behind it. So it's marketing genius as a term, because it makes it feel as if it's all ethereal, accessible, it's fluffy. And of course, we all know the reality isn't that. And the fact that, whatever cloud provider you can think of, whether they call them regions, availability zones, the reality is behind that is hardcore data centers located in various aspects around the world, and there are thousands of them. So I think there's an education piece for people on the street to understand that when they're using TikTok or Instagram or creating videos, that actually where that data is stored in the cloud has an impact on the environment, as well as many other things too. So what we did as Taiga Cloud and building out, or deploying, 20 to 30,000 NVIDIA GPUs across Europe, there's certain key elements we had to uncover and also believe and commit to. So the first is a vision. So our vision as a business is to become Europe's first and largest generative AI cloud service provider. Key thing is obviously first large is fine. I think we're on the way to doing that, but also the cleanest is the key thing we'd want to shine through on this one. And this is also to be achieved through continual innovation. So offering evergreen technology, being agnostic by partnering with the best-in-class supercomputer manufacturers, but also the best-in-class European clean energy data centers. And you'll see, or you've probably heard on other presentation, there's absolutely a new style, new build of data center emerging in today's industry. And the other thing that we strive to do is democratize access to this compute power that we're offering. So, it's in high demand, short supply, and whether it's a small startup, whether it's a research industry, whether it's an organization undertaking drug discovery, our intent is to be able to offer access to this compute power for organizations that need to bring their best ideas to life. So I'm going to put a clock up on the screen in a second, which has got 12 points on it. The first one is our proposition, and the vision is at 12 o'clock, let's call it that. So as well as making accessible generative AI to the European and also the global industry, the key points in that proposition are clean energy, and as well as clean energy, it's also the efficiency of how we use that energy. So we are always targeting sub 1.2 PUE, low latency. So we're aiming at sub 12 milliseconds turnaround time, and we're sort of at the moment between 12 and 15. So we're doing some work to bring that down. And of course, in region, being European is the key areas of compliance. So they're the key areas of what the vision is for the cloud. So once you have that vision in place, which we've had for some time now, and we already have a fairly robust estate when it comes to data centers in Europe, and we're expanding, as you'll see. But the key thing to consider is, okay, where are you going to locate these data centers? How are you going to construct them? Are you going to sort of say, well, okay, there's a great piece of land here, let's build from scratch? Takes time, not the best way to treat the planet sometimes either? Or do you look at really interesting locations that are, let's call them brownfield, that have probably been built for other reasons, which are now looking for a new type of lease of life that we could probably deploy and use as a clean energy data center? And then how are you going to use that power and efficiency once you've got that? So with those four elements, I'll draw your attention to what we have invested in and what we continue to invest in around the locations where we're deploying the generative AI compute power. So in Sweden, on the right-hand side, you know, we're just outside the Arctic Circle in Sweden, and we have renovated an old military base, actually, that was used a long time ago. We've completely renovated, built out the data halls, obviously in the right spec, and interestingly located it right next to a hydropower dam. So it's 100% clean energy. It's obviously carbon neutral by default. And also the PUE for this establishment, we've been able to get it down to 1.04, and that's tracking through for the last few years. So that we're pleased with that environment. We're continuing to invest in it. There's things we can still do to improve it, but that is one area where if you're not familiar with PUE, it's basically the power you put to your IT estate divided by the power that powers the whole data center. So if you can reduce the power offered to cooling, heating, other things, then you can get to a very low PUE of around 1.04. 1 would be neutral. The other area that we have is one of our data centers in Norway. It's an old disused mine. It sits below sea level, again hydro-powered, but also naturally cooled by the fjords. And therefore, that's a great location for us to further invest in and rehouse the latest version of the NVIDIA H100 GPUs. And we're also looking at other sites across Europe expanding too. And you'll see the dots there in the background. So we'd like to think we are continually focused on this area, and we're continuing to invest in it. But as an aside, and this is a little bit of trying to make it a little bit more real, for the compute power we have, it's exactly the same compute power that ChatGPT 3, 4, and also 5 is going to be trained on. So if you look at the analysis, and this is information coming out of Reddit and other sources, that if you had a V100 GPU from an NVIDIA Tesla, it would take 355 years to train ChatGPT 3. Clearly, it didn't take that long because obviously they threw many more machines at it. But if you look at the energy that a V100 draws, that's 300 watts of power, which is if you map that out over 355 years, that equates to 933 megawatts of power to train ChatGPT 3. Now, that's enough to boil a 25-meter swimming pool. 310, 981-litre kettles is the equivalent. Now, when you look at it that way, I think you can say, okay, generative AI is not going to go away. Organizations are going to train bigger and more large language models. They're going to do a lot more inference as well. In fact, inference will be becoming probably the norm going forward once the models are trained. But there's a choice that organizations can make now. They can go to other organizations. They can ask the questions around clean energy and PUE levels. Interesting what answers they may get back. If they don't get the answers, then there's obviously the reason for that. But there is now a choice that organizations have. If they want to move into this sphere, they can do it in a cleaner and more ethical way. So just putting that as an aside. The other key elements to consider is on not just the powering, but also the cooling. And I've put it at 6 o'clock there, circular economy. And what I mean by that is how, when a data center springs up and you're operational, what are the byproducts that you can offer, as well as employment opportunities, etc. But what are the byproducts that an organization can offer to the local community where that data center resides? So coming on stream now, which is a really interesting technology, is the liquid cooling aspect. There's two flavors. There's immersive, which is interesting, but you really do need to reconfigure your data center layout in order to embrace immersive cooling. But then there's what I feel is the more attractive option, for us is the direct-to-chip liquid cooling, which you may have had separate sessions on, over yesterday and today. But what direct-to-chip liquid cooling does, you can see the pipe work there. It doesn't necessarily turn your compute into a washing machine, but the concept is similar, and that is you plug in a flow and return into the back of the machine. And not all machines are actually being manufactured this way today. They're starting to come on stream. But what they are is the ability to put fluid directly over the chip to cool it down and then take that heat away. And the laws of physics would tell you that this is a much more efficient way of doing so. And it's the removal of those heavy, noisy, power-consuming fans as well. And you don't have to reconfigure your data center too much in order to install your direct-to-chip liquid cooling. So this is the direction that we're taking, and we know we can do better on what we're doing on the efficiencies. And this is one way that we are looking to achieve that. And the other thing is that this liquid can actually be recycled into the local community. So we're also looking at ways of saying, we did have an idea of actually setting up our own greenhouse next to the data center and offering, greenhouse grown local produce that would take this fluid in order to heat the greenhouse up, et cetera, and grow the produce. We wanted to do that. We decided against that. What we want to do is look at local communities that could have access to this fluid and use it for their own means, and whether that's heating of houses or whatever it might be. So we're exploring that in the various regions. So that takes us halfway around the clock, and I think I'm probably halfway through the presentation, which is good. The other key thing is compliance. Now, if you're a European organization, you'll probably know this in depth, but also if you're a global organization with European customers, there are certain ISO standards that you need to conform to, or you'll need your data center partners to conform to, or even your cloud providers to conform to. And that's not just around the GDPR aspect, it's also around sovereignty of data, sovereignty of having control of your compute power should anything else happen in the European region, that you have to demonstrate the ability to be able to say, yes, if anything should happen, whatever it might be, an earthquake or something a little bit more sinister, then we know that we've got access to this. We've got the ability to fail over. We have the full control over our data and our compute. And the other key aspect of that is you need that agreement ideally with the European organisation as well. And of course, us being resident in Europe, being a European registered organisation, that's clearly one thing we can offer on that aspect as well. So we're going around now, so that's a very short one. But it then gets into, well, how do you then configure? So you've got your data center set up in the right way, ideally. You are compliant, and then how do you configure the hardware in the right way to offer a number of key things? So if I give a demonstration of the technology that we're putting in place and what we already have in place, then we've got our A6000s, A100 fully deployed and actually helping a lot of organizations achieve some great things. Our H100s come on stream towards the end of this year, and they'll be spread across the estate. And we're configuring all these in a specific way which offers high degrees of efficiency. So what we're doing with our H100s, and already have done with our A100s, is we built them into what we're calling pods. So, and what we mean by a pod, it's 512 GPUs. They're configured into islands of 4 pods, which therefore puts the total up to 2048 GPUs. So they're really strong, intense, powerful units, which are Bluefield DPU managed. So there's an efficiency there. And there's also the fact that we have high-speed InfiniBand, 3.2 terabit InfiniBand that's connecting the compute power together, which the chart there shows, obviously the dark blue there is looking at the speed of InfiniBand compared to other ways of networking. Now, not everybody, I'll just throw that out there, not everybody is configuring their generative AI compute power this way. They're doing it in different ways and they have different levels of connectivity. The reason we're doing it this way is to offer high degrees of efficiency. So organizations that want to come and use our compute platform, then they will be able to train their models much faster, which in turn means they're using less energy as well. So there's a dual benefit here. And the other thing that we have clearly, and this really applies to when we're moving to help organizations move to inference, then we have our tier 3 and low latency capability as well. So those of you familiar with tier 3, you know exactly what that is, but that's guaranteeing uptime and latency, and ideally an absolute maximum of 1.6 hours downtime per year, which is significant. So, and also the elements of security and access within the data center itself. So to actually physically, but also technically ring fence customers inside the data centers too. So those two things together also make it efficient and obviously secure and safe too. And then the final thing, which is worth sharing, is price. Now, we've invested heavily into everything that we've talked about. We continue to invest, and therefore, absolutely, we're not the cheapest, and we won't be the cheapest. And this is another thing I'd like to throw out there. So if you are looking as an organization to move into this field, and you're looking at public cloud, you're looking at smaller organizations, then I would encourage you to ask questions around what I've covered already, just to make sure that you can conform to your compliance, you can conform to your ESG goals and achieve them in the timeframes you need to achieve them. And therefore, there may be a need to pay a little bit of premium. But I'll be completely transparent about price as well as transparent about what I've covered already. And that is, here's our price point. And you know, compared to the hyperscalers, I think we're very competitive. Compared to other smaller providers, we are more expensive. But what we have done is we believe, back to the vision, the aim for us is to offer this compute power to organizations that need access to it, even if they only need access to it for a short period of time. So what we've done in order to deliver against our democratizing access mantra is we've broken down our pricing point to say, if you just want 1 month rolling, you can do that. If you want to go up to 3 years, absolutely you can do that. But you won't take everything we have for 3 years, because we will give you a certain percentage, because we want to make sure we have other customers having access to this to be able to deliver what they want to deliver. But also our price point is linked to the number of GPUs you wish to take. So if you want small time periods and small amounts of GPUs, you can do that. You pay a little bit more. What we want to do is have a rolling on and rolling off set of customers, because ultimately within Europe, our aim is to be this engine that helps organizations, startups, research industries, even SIs and GSIs to be able to have access to this, do what they need to do, and then move on. And therefore, because we know the conveyor belt of demand on what we have is absolutely, well, it's large. So we want to be able to offer that access, hence the need to be able to come up with a more accessible way of offering this to the marketplace. So hopefully that gives you a flavour of where we are. Constant time and questions coming up. That's the clock we've covered. So everything from vision, location, construction. That's what we've done in order to build out this largest cloud, generative AI cloud in Europe. We're going to continue to grow, and we will always continue to look to improve in all these areas, actually. And as when new technology comes on, we'll bring that on board as well. I think that's 20 minutes. I'm looking at my clock. I think so. So I believe we have a few minutes for questions. But if you sat through this and it's been useful, I'm pleased about that. But thanks for taking interest. And if you want to find out more, or if you'd like access to anything that we've got on offer here, then please do ping me an email, and I'll happily respond.
Karl, thank you. You got through a tremendous amount around that clock face in 20 minutes. It was almost as if you were timing yourself. Thank you. A couple of quick questions for me, really. It was you've gone through such ambitious projects, such ingenious projects at times as well. What were some of the biggest projects in setting up that centre? Because there must have been so many challenges that you've sort of gone over slightly, because you've solved them already. But what were those challenges during the progress?
Yeah, I'd like to say we'd solve them all. I mean, like most things, challenges are continuing to emerge, but we are addressing. So, I mean, it's a combination of things. I mean, obviously finding the location, building it out, absolutely key. Agreeing terms, with energy companies, with the hydro organisation that's locally there. If we're picking out Sweden, all those contracts have to be put in place. Access to the equipment and getting delivery and supply chain, that's a manage in itself. And then, of course, you need the team. And I can't praise the engineering team that we have enough. And Christoph Sturman, our director of engineering, and his team, they have worked all sorts of hours, continuing to work. They've got a lot ahead of them with the H100s coming on stream. You need that level of dedication as well. So it is a huge, ask and combination of skills required to achieve it. And we're not done. We're not done. There's a lot more to do, but we're confident that we're on the right track.
And as you say, you're not done. Scalability was my next question. When so much time and effort has gone into this, how important is you build scalability into the entire project to address the needs of the future?
Yeah, so exactly that. So as well as within the data centers, there's need for new capability and expanding that way. So I'm delighted that our sister organisation called Ardent, they're our DC specialists. They are constantly on the lookout for new areas that we could bring on stream, maybe even data centers that some hyperscalers are moving out of. We can inherit those, we purchase them, and then completely renovate them in the way that we want to go to market. Plus the fact we also are finding some really strong partnerships now with organizations out there who have the same values and vision as us. So having third-party relationships with those data centers that are already in place, ready to receive our equipment, is key as well. So we're having a hybrid model, so owning our own, but also partnering as well. And they're always on the lookout. The radar's always on, and as you know, the real estate and the need to have this expansion is not just our need; it's everyone else is looking for this as well. So it's fiercely competitive.
Karl, really enjoyed your insights this morning. Thanks ever so much for joining us at Cloud and 5G Live.
Thank you. Thanks.
A pleasure.